Friends, I hope I think we are going smooth enough and slowly developing the theory into the application side of the theory. It is always the case with the theory that first we develop a theory, we try to benchmark the theory with some known examples. And once the theory is established, then obviously the next part is to give the extension of that theory. So here I take a slight liberty to go and try to discuss some important aspects which are very frequently come across in the high energy particle physics. We know that up to elementary level we were knowing that proton and neutrons are the fundamental particles in the nucleus. But later on, and in fact very soon, it is realized that the protons and neutrons are also made up of even further elementary particles. So rather than calling them the elementary or the fundamental particles, now people are calling them as the elementary particles or the high energy particles. So these high energy particles are basically the relativistic particles. And later on, we will also realize that in order to give the state of these particles, we need to go for few more. In fact, we require more number of quantum numbers or the quantum parameters. Something like in the hydrogen atom problem, we have realized first time that there are three quantum numbers who designate the state of the hydrogen atom. Something like the principal quantum number n, orbital angular quantum number n, and the magnetic quantum number m. Are these three enough for the high energy particle physics, or do we need to go beyond it, requiring more number of quantum numbers? That's the aspect that we try to cover in this small video, in this video number 11, that what are the different quantum numbers that can be obtained simply by applying the Dirac theory. So as an extension of this Dirac theory or the application of Dirac theory to understand the quantum numbers in high energy particle physics, that we try to explore in this video. So I welcome you to this series and enjoy this video. Thank you. So friends, I think we are slowly and gradually gripping to the Dirac equation. And last time I think we have proved that it is the total angular quantum number L plus half h cut sigma dash, or this half h cut sigma dash if you know as a S, the intrinsic angular momentum spin, then this total angular quantum number will be conserved with the Dirac free particle Hamiltonian. But it's not the only part which we can understand from the Dirac equation. In fact, Dirac equation has a lot of implications in the modern many particle high energy theory. So in order to understand that how Dirac equation is in fact useful in explaining the different quantum numbers that we come across in particle physics, to illustrate this one particular aspect, I try to write now the concept of helicity. Helicity, like spin, is also known as the quantum number. We know that even in our ordinary spectroscopy, we used to write our wave function with subscript, say NLM. So this NLM in spectroscopy are known as a principal quantum number or orbital angular quantum number and the magnetic quantum number. Then these three quantum numbers, they are basically used to label the states. So if someone asks that which psi, then I put some value here, say 100, that you understand that it is the energy state or the state of a system where principal quantum number is 1, L, the orbital angular quantum number is 0, and magnetic quantum number is 0. So this psi RT, the state which we are now writing, is been labeled by this quantum number. So quantum numbers are used to label, to identify the state. Particularly in the case of many particle system as favored by both KG equation and the Dirac equation, our interest is always to know that which state are involved in the any physical event. So ultimately we are trying to find the what state or which state we are looking for. Even in case of say statistical mechanics, or rather if I say explicitly, then
quantum statistical mechanics, our interest is always to know the state. And the knowing state means eventually we are looking for the quantum numbers who are able to represent this state. And therefore, even for this Dirac free particle, we try to find out the state which is of the particle, or the different states possible, admissible, accessible by the particles. And therefore, let us recapture that for a Hamiltonian of a Dirac free particle, which we had written like this. And if I find now the commutation of this H, in fact, we have already done this exercise with the orbital angular quantum number, or even is not zero, or even if I say that H alone, H when commutes with S alone, it is also not equals to zero. So it says that this L and S alone, they themselves are not commuting with it, the Hamiltonian. But of course, we know that J, the total angular quantum number, which is the sum of L and S, that commute. And similarly, we can also prove that H commutes with a linear momentum. So this, for angular momentum L and S, the Dirac Hamiltonian does not commute, but for a total angular momentum and even for the linear momentum, it commutes. And we know that those physical quantity who commutes with the H, the Hamiltonian, they are conserved quantities. So in that case, in the case of Dirac particle, J and P are conserved quantity, whereas L and S are not. If any quantity like here, the S or even L, if they do not commute, not conserved, then obviously they cannot be used to define the appropriate quantum number to designate the state. For example, in the case of non-relativistic scenario, we know that any state, let us say psi, this state can be labeled using, say, apart from your NL L, we can write now zth component of the spin, and that's why we write something like ms. Basically, this is your zth component of spin. The reason was that in the case of non-relativity or the non-relativistic particles, the spin is a conserved quantity. And if spin is conserved quantity, its zth component, let us say sz, this sz can be used to define the state of it. Any physical quantity which is conserved and used as a quantum number is known as the good quantum number. So in the case of non-relativistic scenario, Sz is a good quantum number which can be used to label any particular state. But against that, we have just realized that in the case of a relativistically high energy particle like a free Dirac particle, this Hamiltonian does not conserve, Hamiltonian does not commutes with S, and S is not a good quantum number. So obviously this S or L alone cannot be used to label the state. And that problem actually demands that one should go beyond these few quantum numbers which we come across in our lower standard, like a principal quantum number or orbital angular quantum number or a spin quantum number. We need to define few more quantum numbers to designate the high energy state. So relativity pertaining to the particle physics actually demands that we need more quantum numbers, we need more physical quantities who can be used to define or to label the state. And that's why now we are in a position to identify one more quantum number, which I have just said, it is the helicity. So this helicity is the another quantum number that we are defining through the concept of this Dirac equation, and it will be useful to designate the state of a system. This helicity is usually denoted by H, but not necessary H. Some book may also write that as a sigma. It depends on the symbols or the sign. So I use this helicity to define the state of a system. It is defined as H I defined as S dot P by P. So in a way, it is basically your normalized operator. We know that S dot P means it is a scalar quantity. So this S dot P divided by P we define as the new quantum number, the helicity quantum number. And no need to say that since H commutes with P, that H will also commute with P dot S. So this you may also try that H P dot S that commutes, and therefore P dot S can be used as the good quantum number. It can be used to label the state. This H, small h, that is the helicity operator, which is basically the normalized one because we are dividing by the P, it indicates the projection of S along P. It's a dot product. So something like if this is the P and if this is your S, then this part is your S dot P. Right? So the projection of this S along the linear momentum we define as the helicity, and this can be used to label the state of the relativistic quantum mechanical system. Right? So what this H is all about. So let us try to spare 1 or 2 minutes to understand the properties of this H. So I now write the 1 or 2 properties of our importance of H. Right? And therefore let me first find out the square of it. So when I square it, it is S dot P whole square by modulus P whole square, and you know that this is nothing but your S dot P 2 times. So if I put the value of it, then S we have already written as half H cut sigma dash. So when I put the value of it, what I get is 1 by 4 P square H cut square by this P square as it is, and what you get is the unit matrix. Correct? So by simple S dot P, I think in fact it is not very simple as such, but you can prove that. In fact, you can take it as a one example that prove that this S dot P 2 times, that is S dot P whole square, can be written like this 1 by 4 P square H cut square. But when you prove it, then what you are finally getting that H square can be written as 1 by 4 H cut square, implying that the eigenvalue of H is plus or minus half H cut. It has the same eigenvalue as that of the S, the spin operator. Right? So this eigenvalue of this helicity operator you can define like this. Second thing which we can understand from the this helicity operator is that if your particle having the spin which is in the same direction to that of a motion, then we call it as a right-handed helicity. Right-handed helicity means where the spin and the direction of the motion of a particle are in the same. If it is opposite, then we call it as a left-handed. And this type of language, right-handed particle or a left-handed particle, is very common when we go to the particle physics, high-energy particle physics. Basically, this right-handedness or left-handedness of the particle describes whether the spin of a particle is in the same direction to that of a motion or not. Right? So this is another property of a particle, relativistically high-energy particle, can be understood by defining the another quantum number, helicity. Third thing which is very common and obvious, that since we have designed our H in such a way that it includes S dot P, and therefore it is necessarily commutes with the Dirac-Hamiltonian. So if I find the commutation relation between the Dirac-Hamiltonian and helicity, it is definitely 0. And our quantum mechanics suggests that whenever any two operator commutes, they have a simultaneous eigenvectors. So they have common eigenvectors. Correct? So if you know what are the eigenstate of H, then the helicity has the same eigenstate. We have already proved for Dirac Hamiltonian, the corresponding eigenstates are the four component vector. So the same four component vector, just to remind you, I think this is what we have written, that uj, and in case of the plane wave, it is written as I raised to e raised to I k dot kr minus omega t. So it is the same thing you can take as the eigen vector or the eigen function for helicity operator. Right? So these are the few properties of the helicity operator, but eventually it is useful to a case where your spin or L or any quantum number which were used in the non-relativistic case fails to give the good quantum number in the relativistic case. So if S is not being used because it is not conserved with the free particle Dirac Hamiltonian, then instead of S you can use the helicity as the good quantum number to label, to designate the state. As a special case of it, let us consider you have a massless fermion with spin S half, correct? And you know that this is like a neutrino. So if you are considering a particle or a system made up of neutrino and antineutrino, then in that case, for a neutrino and antineutrino, your rest mass is 0. So H will go like a C alpha dot P. And because of this massless fermion, now we are going even further to define another quantum number, not even helicity, we define the another quantum number known as a chirality. So you can see that it is in a very obvious way, as you go to higher and higher energy particles, then you need to define more and more quantum numbers to designate the state uniquely. So this labeling of the state demands that more number of quantum numbers we need to define. And that's why you will we can learn in say in a particle physics or even in the subatomic physics, where the apart from your spin, apart from your angular quantum number, we need large number of quantum numbers to define a particular state of a system. Something like in the case of nucleus, we define isospin, or we define a parity. As I've said, we define the helicity or chirality. So all these quantum numbers are eventually used to designate the state uniquely. So what happens is that the Dirac equation is automatically giving rise to the concepts of a large number of quantum numbers. It is this Hamiltonian who, when do not commute with any physical quantity, or when it does commute with any other physical quantity, that's the way we can go on adding the quantum numbers to designate the state. So this is the additional topic which I have considered to prove that importance of the Dirac equation, that how Dirac equation is even as useful to define another or the more number of quantum numbers, and it also tells you the demand of defining the another quantum numbers. So this is in a way is the one more application of the Dirac equation to understand the high energy particle physics. In the next part, we will be describing the magnetic moment, how magnetic moment is actually can be explained for a Dirac relativistic particle. There I think we will couple our magnetic moment concept of electromagnetism, electrodynamics with the Dirac Hamiltonian, and then we in a very natural way we come up with the magnetic moment of a particle. So that part I think we take next. So till then I think I just wait. Thank you.
So friends, this is the first glimpse where you can realize that how quantum mechanics is the basic mechanics to explore your subatomic or the high energy particle physics. This is the entry point for your high energy particle physics. For example, in this lecture, we have derived the concepts of helicity, and later on we have extended to the chirality. So these are the, as an example I have taken, these are the few quantum numbers that can be used to designate the state. In fact, if you just recall that this theories, either KG equation or say the Dirac equation, they both permit the many particle system. Basically, they deal with the field theory. And being a many particle system, we definitely say that they are very close to the statistical mechanics, which also deals with the many particle system. And we also know from our elementary statistical mechanics that in order to understand the mechanics, first you need to know what are the accessible and allowed and permissible state. And in order to identify the states, you need to give the address to those states, something we call in the language of quantum mechanics, you have to designate the state. What that state is, if someone asks this question, you need some parameters, you need some quantum numbers to tell that it is this particular state. If any of the quantum number is different, then means the address is different, you are talking about some different state. So with this routine life understanding, we can say that in order to go for the high energy particles, relativistic particles, one required to go for the more number of quantum numbers. Not only just the NLM of your hydrogen atom or the spin, now we can say, even we need to go further to the spin, like what we have derived the concepts of helicity and the chirality. Many more quantum numbers can be derived and can be useful to designate the states. Once you are in a position to designate the states, obviously based on whether the particle is fermionic or whether the bosonic, you can fill in those states. So this filling of the states by the allowed number of particles with the proper quantum numbers, following certain rules of conservations, you can now develop the entire theory. That's the base what we try to address in this lecture. So I hope you have enjoyed. Again, I tried to keep the mathematics and the language as simple as possible to convey to all the students. But the merit of this theory is that it can be extended further and we can explore further. In fact, in the next lecture, we will also talk about the magnetic moment, and you will see in the class of the nuclear physics that the magnetic moment is also the quantum number which can be useful in telling about something about the nucleus. So all those things can be derived using the Dirac theory and the KG theory. So I hope you have enjoyed this simple extension of the Dirac theory. And if you have enjoyed, obviously, what is your role? You know, should I repeat it? To subscribe it, share it, like it, and of course, make a comment. Thank you.